I'm going to do something which I did 25 years ago in an earlier speech at this club. And that was the speech I gave at my pre-selection. I'm going to move this lectern out. Well, first I want to say to all of you that tonight we've got good news, and yes, we've got a little bit of bad news, but the good news is much more important than the bad news. The good news is that there is every chance that the Liberal National Coalition has won this election. This is a really extraordinary result. It is a stupendous result. It is a great result for Scott Morrison and the rest of the wider Liberal team, and Scott Morrison will now quite rightly enter the Liberal pantheon forever. So, of course, it's disappointing for us here in Warringah. But what matters is what's best for the country. And what's best for the country is not so much who wins or loses Warringah, but who forms or does not form a government in Canberra. And tonight we can be extraordinarily confident, more confident than we had ever had any right to expect, that we will have continued good Liberal national government. Now, I have to say that once we had the result in the Wentworth by-election 6 months or so back, I always knew it was going to be tough here in Warringah. And I can't say that it doesn't hurt to lose, but I decided back then in October of last year that if I had to lose, so be it. I'd rather be a loser than a quitter. Yeah. And I do acknowledge the fierce and ultimately successful campaign that has been waged by my political opponents in this speech. I do congratulate Zali Steggall on what is a magnificent win for her, and I hope that she will have a long and I hope that she will have the long and successful career as local member that the people of Warringah deserve. But I think we can see that there is something of a realignment of politics going on right around this country. It's clear that in what might be described as working seats, we are doing so much better. It's also clear that in at least some of what might be described as wealthy seats, we are doing it tough, and the Green Left is doing better. But the truth is that if you believe that the most important thing is to raise people up, if you believe that the most important thing is to give people a better life, the fact that so many people in seats that might be thought of as doing it tough are now looking to our party for leadership is a great tribute and a great credit to our party and to our voters. Over the next few days and weeks, I suspect there will be a great deal of analysis of the part that climate change did or did not play in the Warringah outcome. And let me just say this as my first word, if not necessarily my last word on this subject. Where climate change is a moral issue, we Liberals do it tough. But where climate change is an economic issue, as the result tonight shows, we do very, very well. Now, it's often said that all public lives end badly, but I'm certainly not going to let one bad day spoil 25 great years. I'm incredibly proud of all that I've done. Obviously, there are some things that, with the wisdom of hindsight, might have been done differently and better. But I've got to say that I can look back on the last 25 years, and I do look back on the last 25 years with immense pride and satisfaction. And I'm incredibly proud of the fact that so far I am one of just 4 people in history who has led our party from opposition into government in Canberra, and I hope that the Morrison government has such a long life that it's a long time till there is a 5th. Finally, some thank yous. I don't believe that the Warringah campaign could have done more or done better. I think every aspect of our campaign was as good as it humanly could have been under the circumstances. I want to thank Peter O'Hanlon for his outstanding job as the director. I thank Michelle Moffat for her outstanding work as his deputy. And I thank Roger Corbett, a really great Australian, for coming into the team as my FEC conference president. I thank my staff. I could not have had a better, more loyal and more professional staff, particularly Sam Jackson-Hope for his wonderful work. I thank my family. Margie, you have been a wonderfully supportive spouse. I thank my children, 2 of whom can't be here tonight, but one of whom did a wonderful job of winning votes up at Lambie Heights School today. I thank my mum. We are all what our parents make us. And I thank my sisters, all 3 of whom were booth captains today. So, for the first time ever, politics has finally become the family business, just as I bow out of it. Finally, I do want to say a big thank you to the people of Warringah. I could not have achieved anything in public life, but for the support that the people of Warringah have given me over 25 great years. My public life will, I imagine, go on. My life as member for Warringah will not. But Warringah is the place I live. It's the place I will continue to serve, and I look forward to many, many more years living, working and serving in the greatest part of the greatest city of the greatest country on earth. Thank you.
Well, pretty gracious concession speech there from Tony Abbott as he bows out after 25 years, extraordinary years in the federal parliament, including a period as Prime Minister, of course, as well. He did say there that after what we saw in the Wentworth by-election last year, when Karen Phelps won as an independent, he knew that it was going to be tough there in Warringah. Hang on a minute.
Your disappointment here cloud your satisfaction and joy at what's happened elsewhere in the country. This is a good night for Australia. It's a great night for the Liberal Party. It's a good night for Australia. It's a great night for the Liberal Party. That means it's got to be a great night for us as well.
All right, we'll leave that there. He's giving a rev up to the folks there to give them something to celebrate. The reason I say it was gracious was because he really focused on what's the good thing about tonight for the Liberal Party, for the coalition. That's that there is every chance, in his word, that the LNP has won this election. We don't know that yet. We'll get back to the count in a minute, but he's focusing on the positive there for the party rather than his own disappointment. Peter Credlin, I've got to get your thoughts right there watching Tony Abbott, who you worked so closely with, concede. This is it, the end of the road.
That's a measure of the man. I mean, that was such a masterclass in dignity and grace. You know, tough blow, losing your seat. John Howard lost his seat. It's not unusual for Liberal Prime Ministers to lose their seat. He was very gracious to Zali Steggall, very gracious to her campaign, and it has been her campaign, not her, but her campaign, certainly been less than ideal, certainly not, you know, the rules according to Hoyle. He's a conviction politician that sort of belongs in another age nowadays. You know, we talked about Hawke in the last couple of days. Abbott is one of those people who feels very deeply that public office should be something as Australians we should better revere. We should treat all politicians, left and right, with a better treatment as public in public domains, how we greet them on the street, how we respect their convictions, because Richard's here and Stephen Conroy and Graham Richardson, it's a very tough ask on the individual, on their families, and it should be a contest of ideas. It shouldn't be faeces in books. It shouldn't be personal campaigns.
Correct.
It shouldn't be the C word on posters. And I just think anyone who has supported him throughout those 25 years, you look at that speech tonight and you know you supported a good man.
Just, I've got to ask though, I mean, he acknowledges there, and you would be tough after what happened in Wentworth. You know, I'm sure some will say, should he have gone after losing the Prime Ministership? Was he the best candidate to put up there in Warringah? Now, no one was clearly... I don't think they had the pre-selection meeting and there was an empty chair. We're willing to knock him off per se, but was it the right thing to do to stick around and contest Warringah, given all this? I
could go back to 2009. It would have been a good idea when Malcolm Turnbull lost the leadership. He should have left the parliament as he intended then. I think this would have been a very different decade if Malcolm Turnbull had left when he said he was leaving rather than stay and keep going in politics. No one has a rear-view mirror, David. I think that, as he said, he didn't want to be a quitter. He's prepared to lose, and he's got a thick skin. If nothing else can be said about Tony Abbott, the stuff that gets thrown at him, very personal attacks. Interestingly, Margie was there tonight. I mean, people at home might not know. She couldn't go to the booths today for fear of all the personal attacks. She couldn't vote with her husband after 25 years. Great that she was there tonight. Great the rest of his family was. And congratulations on an outstanding career.
Well, Alan Jones watching there as well. Alan, I guess, you know, plenty of things to ask here. What's next for Tony Abbott? You know, he's plenty of energy there, you can tell. But what did you make of the way he's bowed out there tonight?
Well, sometimes, of course, people, the real person is often only seen by the public when the wind is in their face. It's very easy for people to perform commendably and laudably when the wind's behind them. He confirmed tonight what I have argued for 25 years. This is a remarkable and outstanding Australian. And the choice of words, the delivery tonight, indicated what I have said for a long time. In everything that Tony Abbott has done in public life, he has put the interests of the nation ahead of himself. And that's precisely why he continued to serve. He didn't resign just because he lost the Prime Ministership, just because he'd been white-handed and knifed, which he had been from the moment he became Prime Minister. And yet he bears no malice. I've known this man. I've never, ever heard Tony Abbott in any dialogue with me white-hand anybody. He's always maintained an optimism, a sense of commitment and a sense of decency. We saw all of those things tonight. That was a very, very tough speech to make. And yet through it all, why was there no emotion? The reason being that the party and the nation have always been to Tony Abbott bigger than the man. And as I said earlier tonight, and I say it again, he would be disappointed at losing, of course, but he believes that the greater interest would be served tonight if the Liberal Party were reaffirmed as the government of Australia. And so there's a sense of optimism by him that that may yet happen. So the public have seen tonight a remarkable Australian, and I hope they appreciate the nature of that person. He's never, ever been given credit, I don't think, for the qualities he's brought to office. And tonight we've seen in the face of disappointment a sense of dignity and decency for which he's never been given credit, and I think for which many, many Australians will be eternally thankful.
Alan, thank you. We need to keep ploughing through what's going on, though, in terms of who's going to be winning government tonight. We'll hear from you later, Alan. We're watching Tony Abbott and so on there. Look, it's very close. What's your feeling right now as to where this is going to land?
Well, I still think Labor would be favoured to just get there, but it's so close. I'm not, as I said before, not putting the mortgage on it. But it's just so sad watching Tony. As many people know, he's a great friend of mine, despite the political divide, and he has been for decades. I didn't just become a mate of his yesterday. I just wish it hadn't happened, but the fact that it had, just remarkable, that kind of speech. He is an extraordinary Australian.
I'll hold that thought there, Richo, because he's talking to Chris Kenny. I can see on the screen there. Let's go to Chris. He's with Tony Abbott right now.
Thanks, David. Tony, you won't have been able to hear it, but Graham Richardson was just telling the nation how sad he was to see your political career end in this way. All the highs and lows you've had over 25 years, you must have thought about it, how it would end. How sad is it for you to end in this way, losing your own seat in your own heartland?
Well, I'm not the first person to lose his seat. Obviously, John Howard lost his seat in 2007. Stanley Melbourne Bruce lost his seat back in 1929, I think it was. And at least I didn't lose the seat as PM. But look, over the years, I've had ups, I've had downs. I accept that there are good days and bad days in this business. And as I said a moment ago, I'm not going to let one bad day spoil 25 good years.
You made a very gracious speech. Richo just noted that. There was one line that stood out for me, though. You said that you would rather be a loser than a quitter. Was that a barb at the man who followed you into the Prime Ministership?
Well, no, it's the truth. It's the truth. Look, I think that it's important to stand up for the things you believe in, even if it means you lose. Some things are worth losing for. And I thought fighting for the seat that I've represented for 25 years, fighting for the political positions that I've held for 25 years was worth going on with, even though I knew after the Wentworth by-election that it was going to be a very, very tough struggle indeed.
What about the campaign that was launched against you? I don't believe Australia's ever seen anything like this before. Get up the independents, vote out Tony, the C word plastered around your electorate, the violence last night. Is this an ugly and dangerous new phase in Australian politics?
Well, there is no doubt that there was a massive array of forces. There was the independents, there was the Greens, the Labor Party and Get Up. So it was really 4 against 1 here in Warringah, and all 4 of them, each of the 4 are a pretty formidable force, but all 4 of them together are extraordinarily formidable. I take some solace from the fact that by drawing so many of the forces of the Green left into Warringah, maybe that has made it easier for some of my colleagues to hold on or indeed to win in other parts of Australia.
But there was no positive agenda. Their only aim was to get rid of you. You were the target as the leading Conservative in the Australian politics in many ways. Even the Vote Tony Out mob preferenced Fraser Anning's representative ahead of you. I just don't think that we've seen that sort of negative campaigning in this country ever before.
Look, there is absolutely no doubt that it was very personal. It was often nasty, and occasionally it was vile. And look, it was successful, but on the other hand, however much disappointment there might be about the result in Warringah, there should be great satisfaction about what seems to be the national result. And as I say, if we continue to have good, steady government in Canberra, courtesy of the coalition, the loss of the seat of Warringah is, may I say, a small price to pay.
Two last questions before we let you go. Firstly, that national result, what do you believe it says about the issue of climate change above all others and the state of Australian politics?
Well, as I said a moment ago, where climate change is a moral issue, it's a problem for us. Where climate change is an economic issue, I actually think it works to our benefit. And in all of the seats that have swung, and it seems swung strongly to the coalition tonight, they're battler seats where people are much more interested in their cost of living than they are in some hypothetical argument about what might happen globally in many decades' time.
I also want to ask you if you have any idea at this stage what next?
No, other than quite a few days surfing next week, and I suspect availability to do hazard reduction burns and generally turn out for the local fire brigade.
Maybe tidy up the back end. There is one, I lied, one more question. Is there something, what would you like to say to the people of Australia tonight as your political career ends, both to those who have been great supporters of yours and the haters?
Well, thank you. Thank you, because to represent the people in the Parliament is a wonderful honour. To have been a party leader for 6 years and a Prime Minister for 2 years, that's an extraordinary privilege, and I am forever grateful.
Tony Abbott, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, mate. Good on you. Thank you.
Tony Abbott there, David Spears, amazingly philosophical at the end of his 25-year political career. Back to you.
Indeed, Chris Kenny, well done. Thank you very much for that. And quite a perceptive comment we might dig into perhaps a little later on from Tony Abbott in the speech he gave earlier, that working seats are going the Conservatives' way, wealthy seats are not.